Here in Key West, we were out before it was in. In this open and inclusive paradise, you can be yourself, make new friends, and savor our live and let live vibe. With LGBTQ plus friendly accommodations, our legendary nightlife, and year-round activities and events, it's always a good time to come as you are. Key West, close to perfect, far from normal.
You know what I could really go for right now? Literally anything that comes in a McDonald's carton, wrapper, or bag. Or a McDonald's cup. Yes, any of those items should do it.
We've got your cravings covered. Now stop in for the flaky Filet-O-Fish, the crispy snack wrap, or large fries for just $2.99. Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Some things never cease to amaze me. Sunrises, hitting a golf ball straight, and the overwhelming ignorance of the common person. Here's a thought. Use Form Bs to determine classification. This, in fact, is competitive balance. Season 8 of Sun Coaches Podcast, where not everyone is funny or tells funny stories, but everyone has a story. Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 8. And after a little hiatus of last week, because I was up with influenza, we're back with Coach Ed Gaffca of the Fired Football Coaches Association. Coach, thanks for being on with me.
Glad to be back. Glad you're feeling slightly better. I know you're still bouncing back, but I know we got a lot to cover. But obviously, I'm just glad to be back on, and hopefully, we can get back rolling.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, the first thing I'd like to talk about is I made it exactly 4 hours into the Glazier Atlanta clinic before I determined that I was too sick to go on, but I was there the night before to help set up, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Coach Jason McManus. He was the head of the whole clinic, and he was the operator and did a great job organizing people. Met a lot of new guys to me, a lot of new faces that were helping set up. It was just a good group he has working there, and they set it up, and it ran seamlessly from what I saw. And I was just so sick. I got to talk to a few people, came up and talked to me, but I was in such a bad state that I hope nobody got sick from me, and I know I didn't come across great because I just really didn't feel good. I reached out to all the guys I talked to, and I was like, "Hey, man, I wish I could have been better company." Met some new dudes, and it was great. I got to meet the Dread Lion in person, so that was awesome, and got to see some old friends. Coach Eric Parker, talked to him for a little bit, and just some guys. I mean, like the clinic is supposed to be. You get to see some of your old buddies and that. But Thursday night was probably my favorite when we went out to Buffalo Wild Wings with the Long County staff and my guy James and one of the coaches from Long County start talking about alien spaceships under Antarctica, and then we got talking about Bigfoot. And there was a guy on their staff that's from Colorado and was like, "Well, I've seen Bigfoot." And I was like, "Dude, you have my full attention." So Coach Feaster was like, "I wonder what Rocky would think about this." And I was like, "I don't know. Let's text him." So the next morning, Rocky was like, "Hey, you should do a podcast where it's nothing but coaches talking about conspiracy theories." So that may be coming in the future, Coach. But that was the Glazier Clinic. I know you've written a lot of articles since then. The first one that I remember that we were going to talk about for last week was parental horror stories, and some of those were it just pretty much showed why you don't always need to communicate with parents all the time because they come up with some doozies.
Yeah, moral of the story: parents suck. I mean, in large scale here, we have no longer any sane parents, right? Like we've got people that are bona fide idiots. Somehow they were allowed to procreate. It is always interesting because we always have difficult parents, no matter your program, no matter what school you're at. Buford's probably got parents that are awful as well. but at least they can sit there and show the success here. But it's always the ones that can't even allow a win to be a win. It's always, well, but little Johnny didn't get in the game, or you didn't win by enough, or, um, you killed my son's love for the game, which is honestly billboard material. Favorite thing I think every coach has heard at least one time. And if you haven't, it's coming. Just be patient. To me, that's going to go on a shirt very soon. Killed my son's love for the game, because that's what we do as coaches, right? We have it out for your kid personally. We go in to every coaching meeting and definitely try to make sure that, hey, here's what we're going to do, guys. We are going to pick on Johnny this week and try to kill his love for this game. No, we're trying to figure out how to win the game, and little Johnny's, knees touching ass. He ain't going to help us. So I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry that you think we're all terrible. But again, these people, these people are just some of the worst I think I've ever seen, and these didn't disappoint. I love, and I mean I loved, when people have issues with kids playing, but their kid missed multiple practices, or they didn't show up all summer and they're asking why their kid's not playing. Well, kind of simple. Look at the calendar. Um, I also love it whenever there's X's and O advice. Those are my personal favorite. But it's little things like that that really keep me super happy. And when next time you're in a staff meeting, an all staff meeting at the school, and they ask you your why, here's your answer. It's because parents like this. These are the ones who keep me getting out of bed every morning and go fighting the good fight, just so I can continue to try to take the love of somebody's kid's love of the game. That's why. So yeah, that was a fun article just based on the submissions I got. I didn't even have to do any work really. It was all thanks to all the coaches who, like many of us, keep the receipts on this nonsense. So again, if you have any more, or you didn't send it before, send them to me. I'll handle the nothing getting back to you. I'll, redact everything. It'll look like a damn, Epstein list at this rate. So, shoot it to me and I'll be happy to put it out there.
It's good stuff, coach, and that is true. I mean, we've both done it for a long time, and as Coach Killingsworth told me a long time ago, apple trees make apples every single time. Apple tree has never, not one time, ever made a banana. So sometimes when you wonder, and what's really bad is a lot of times that the kid is completely unaware of the fact that their parent has gone off the rails, and that's really the sad thing, because it could be a really, really good kid and you don't realize that there's any problem because you get along with the kid's fine, they've accepted their role. It's just the parents living vicariously through their child. And story as old as time. That's just one of those things. The next article that you wrote is the exclusive interview that you had with Coach Probst. And I thought that was a very well written article. It was very, very polite, very nicely done. There was no negativity, just pointing out your opinions on one of the most successful, although polarizing high school coaches to ever grace the sidelines in any state, really, probably.
Yeah, I think one of the funny critiques I got was like, "Hey, this is like this is a puck piece for him." Well, again, my question to that is, well, tell me where I'm wrong in anything that I bring up, right? If what you're looking for is for me to go out and recycle and regurgitate the same storylines and things that have been brought up and are well known, yeah, well, that's not it. I'm taking in what my conversation with Coach Frakes was, which over the span of a couple days, it was about an hour and a half, 2 hours long, and it was very interesting. Number one, he's probably got one of the better memories of down distance play, time in the game of anybody I've ever talked to. Um, I think that what was interesting was just hearing some of the things that he needed in his, if he is going to take another job, kind of where that stands, the jobs that he did have interest in Georgia, this year, and a lot of stuff, I wasn't going to share in that initial article because, again, I told him, I said, "This is just for background. This I need to understand a little bit more. I need to know the person that's not the polarizing person, but really, I wanna hear from the football coach side of things." And that's what I did, and that's what I wrote on. Again, it's more about the things that come with rush ropes, that's obvious. But, if you're not willing to do some of the things which I believe are a realistic ask at places, not every job is for him, and he's not for every job. So I do think that there is a select few places that I could see him ending up at. Not for nothing. I think that if Lowndes or Valdosta came open again, he'd push very hard, potentially for either one of those if the right people are in place at Valdosta. And then I think he would enjoy the lounge job. I think that there's some jobs similar to that, but again, he's just big on making sure they got vertical integration, vertical alignment, top down, and you got to have a motivated group of people, in the community that understand this is what it takes to build a brand and build a champion. And that's the thing is he gets a lot of negativity thrown his way, some deserving and some not so deserving, but the reality I see is, you know, when it comes down to it, this past season he coached at a small private school, takes it to a state championship and wins it. And he told me that was probably his best coaching job he's done in a long time because again, he's coaching basically every damn position out there. And, for him to be able to do that at 67, 68 years old and still have that fire of wanting to go do it, I think that people need to understand that if there were actual verifiable, not rumors, not anything of that nature, but actual verifiable things when it comes to his teaching certificate, he wouldn't have it. And that's the reality. Disagree with it all you want, but there's a reason why they reinstated it. Uh, You could think they're just massive hypocrites at the PSC. I might not disagree with you. But again, you're talking about two separate times that his certificate's been up for questioning on that. And neither time did they, uphold the suspension of it or remove it. As for his ending at Valdosta, there's a reason why the GHSA didn't punish Rush Probst. You need to go find out why that's the case and ignore the initial headlines and realize that there's a lot other things going on below the surface that I think should be mentioned because again, if you want to put it all on Rush Probst, okay, but GHSA didn't. GHSA didn't punish him one bit. So that's the reality of it. But yeah, really enjoyed having the opportunity to speak with them, and looking forward to continuing having some further conversations. And got a
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
things planned as we get closer to spring. But yeah, you want to talk about a wealth of knowledge of just program building and just hearing some of the stories and the fact that North Gwinnett pass interference just eats him alive still. But it definitely was an enjoyable couple hours.
Well, and that led into the next article, which was speaking of the GHSA, how they handled the Appleton County situation, another situation you mentioned in there, the transfer stuff. And it's just further proof that whatever's in place that we have now is not very effective. And we pick and choose when and how we administer or enforce these rules. Now, to respond to what you said earlier, I'm just going to say this. I've said for years that my favorite golfer ever is Tiger Woods. It's not even close. Do I want to hang out with him on a daily basis or have him raise my kids? No, probably not. Same thing with Coach Probst. What is not polarizing about him is his ability to coach football. I can get down with that. The question becomes, is a high school football coach supposed to teach more than X's and O's and program building and all the other stuff? Are they supposed to be the moral compass for? I don't know. That's for each individual program, community, or whatever. But what I do know is that dude wins football games. So if you're just looking for a football coach, just like if I'm looking for the best golfer in the world to play on my team, I don't really care about, you know, how you treat other people. I don't, if I want the best basketball coach I've ever seen, give me Bobby Knight. Don't really care if he's a nice guy or not. Doesn't matter. Give me results. That's what I care about. And that's pretty much what most people care about. But you wrote an article about the GHSA and how they did that, and we're going to segue that into your most recent article that you released tonight about GHSA reform, and then we'll finish up with like the big school, small school, and then some job stuff. So the how they administered the drama last year, is there anything you'd like to say about that?
Well, again, I think it goes back to the central theme of frustration that I think the more I dig into GHSA and things, I think this is my number one kind of issue, which is the complete inability to kind of have a uniform policy of how to, look at these individual situations and apply a penalty or apply, you know, any sort of ruling on these things because in what we last time I checked, we do live in the United States of America, okay? And there is something about being able to speak in your own defense, right? And to me, the fact that the former head coach and the other accused assistant coach were never once reached out to or asked to comment about this. Instead, it was a game played by the lawyer for Appling County, who, by all accounts, on the five people that I spoke to down there, by all five accounts, at that point was kind of a yes man for the school system. They were going to do what was in the best interest of the board's wishes. And when you have two board members that Appling County had that were reached out to by Pierce County, because Pierce County, if you didn't know, is a rival of Appling County. And they had just lost for a third consecutive year to Appling County. And you know what? They had been fishing for 2 years trying to find a reason to turn them into GHSA. They turned in three total kids. Two of those kids came from Pierce County. They said they followed a coach. Upon further review, they found out that that was not true. So those two kids were deemed eligible. The third kid, and the kid that ended up costing the coach's job and the assistant coach's job, and their region championship and their semifinal appearance and everything associated with it. Well, they said that he went to a camp prior to him enrolling at Appling County. Well, the funny thing about that is, I have the camp list. I've got confirmation from the camp organizer. I've got every single verifiable piece of information that confirms that, well, that's just not true either. All we have is word of mouth from Pierce County and word of mouth from whatever defense that was put up by the attorney for Appling County. And so to me, when you have individuals that get upset on a board of education, they're upset because the head football coach was also the athletic director, and when the board of education member has a relative that's also a head coach in that school system and they don't like the way that certain things go down, they want to make a point to, well, he can't do that, we need to put him in his place. And well, when you go to him and you don't like his answer, you decide, okay, well, we need to change because my baby's feelings are hurt. Okay, well, here's the problem. This is why Appleton County, in my opinion, will not be as good as they could be or as healthy as they should be from an organization standpoint moving forward. That's why you had 9 damn people on a, interview committee. That's why you had a complete circus of a process, and that's why when you allow people to influence decisions based on their own moral compasses and their own, you know, heart's desires. This is what happens. We sit here and we throw Appling County the death penalty basically when we've got schools in North Georgia. And so all of that took place. They got a $7,000 fine or something. They got all their wins vacated. They got all this stuff. And, you know, for in reality, one kid that all the documentation was available. They didn't think to the GHSA didn't think to say, "Hey, why don't we hear from the head football coach or the coach that's also accused here? Why don't we hear from them?" I guess teach his own, but if it were me, I would wanna not hear it secondhand. I'd wanna go straight to the horse's mouth here. Also had signed affidavits from, the parents, from people that were involved, and guess what? That didn't move the needle one bit because either it wasn't presented or, that's it, and when they said that they exercised all of their options and fought it to the very end, they didn't. They went to the appeal board, that's it. That is like Gainesville going to appeal their suspensions against Brunswick and stopping there. There's other options. Now, in this instance, they could have appealed it to the executive board and had the executive committee take a look at it. And then if they didn't like that, then they could have filed suit. Then they could have gone down that road. But the reality is, it was an overreach by the GHSA. You now have, Locust Grove had several players that followed a coach or recruited. They ended up, taking away their wins this year, but the fine's not as big. And ultimately, I find the lack of consistency in the application of the rule to be the most insulting aspect of all of this. And again, I haven't asked the Locust Grove coach this, but I wonder if they even asked him about it. At some point, maybe start asking the people that are directly affected and let them have their day in court. um, if they choose not to, that's one thing. But for you not to even ask Appling County's former head football coach a fucking question, I mean, excuse my language, but it gets me fired up listening to it. I've never been more disappointed to listen to a situation because how it was painted to every one of us was, boy, they were cheating left and right. That's the only reason why they were winning. Nope, just flat out wasn't true. And the process of it, you I honestly can't think of a board of education that I would least like to go down and hang out with. Just knowing all the things that they've swept under the rug and knowing all the things that they've allowed happen for their own personal gain and the stuff that they're still not, you know, I mean, they've got so many things hanging out there that people should already been fired and they're just waiting. And it's just embarrassing. I have no desire to ever be in Appling County, and now it only cements it more. I'll find another way. I'll find another way around if I ever have to go down there.
Well, that's the case in a lot of these, or that's the situation in a lot of these cases, especially in small towns where somebody's got an axe to grind. They're gonna take their perceived, position of power, and they're gonna use it to the fullest to do whatever they wanna do, and if you're in it long enough, you'll become a victim of one of these said situations, and, I've learned that that's just apparently part of the way humans work, and that's why I don't go out very much, but all of that leads to the article tonight. Our discussion is gonna go to, if you were going to reform the GHSA, here's what you would do as the director of fired football coaches or Fired Coaches Association, and you start off with classification model. So let's talk about just piece by piece. We'll start with, you looked at a bunch of different states and you pulled out things you like. And of course, I'm not going to agree with everything, but there are great points in all this stuff. And the first suggestion you had was how to determine classification.
Yeah, and like you said, I did research a bunch of different states and just kind of see how they did it. Obviously, there's a bunch of different unique things that happen for each state because every state's different. So it should be a little bit different for California, Texas, wherever. But ultimately in Georgia, I felt like classification model. We go back and forth on this all the time, and I've discussed it on here before. I think if we did enrollment plus the out of district athletic participation multiplier, you'd have a little bit better idea of creating that competitive balance as well as a little bit more appropriate, more competitive, areas. That's not always, going to be the case. And there's going to be outliers that are outliers for a reason, right? And again, this is very football focused. It's not, obviously that's what we talk about here. So, I'm not sitting here saying this is the model for every damn sport. It's the model that I think could potentially benefit football in Georgia from a product standpoint, from a rules and enforcement standpoint, and how we, move forward, from a playoff standpoint, just all of it, right? And so from classification, I think that if we still maintained our 8 regions and if we had to go up to 9 or 10 or whatever we need to do, obviously, I think whatever makes it's common sense customer service, right? That's
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Another checkered flag for the books. Time to celebrate with Chumba. Jump in at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See T&Cs. 21 plus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
all we're trying to do is figure out what makes the most sense based on the information that we have. There's a lot different numbers in metro versus outside versus south and all that stuff. But what we can agree on is when you have a team that has 50 out of district kids and 40 of them are all playing an athletic sport. Well, that to me is where, you know, that should be a, nice little multiplier to get you in a higher classification or whatever. Um, Whereas when you're at some of these places that are a magnet school or something where, they have a lot of out of district kids because of a program that they offer. Um, and, and none of those future NASA engineers are 7 foot on a football field, hope to God, but they're counting against your number the same. So I think that is where you're not being penalized for them joining. Now, you still might have 1,500 kids or 1,800 kids, but you're not in an issue. You're not getting bumped up to the highest classification just because you get all those out of district kids who aren't even participating in athletics. So that's yeah, so that's how I would classify. What do you think about that, coach?
That's not bad. It doesn't sound much different from my proposal of Form B rules. I think there's a lot of creative ways to deal with classification. I don't know that what we do now is the best way, but there are a lot of different ways we could do it that would be better. Now, this next section comes on the heels of the state of Tennessee passing a law last week where you get to transfer one time and you get one freebie. And I kind of like that. I know you proposed something completely different. Well, not completely, but a little different. I looked through it. There's a lot to it. I'll let you explain your transfer rule, but I can kind of get down with the we'll give you one scenario that Tennessee's come up with. But what was your thinking on the transfers, coach?
Well, just like anything in our rules for GHSA, I think well, we've overlayered it, right? We've overdone it with the amount of rules and different one-offs and things that it's almost like you're putting in rules to address very specific schools and specific areas, opposed to what's probably in the best interest of the kids and the greater member schools. So I say it's allow movement and then enforce it like hell, right? So what I said is institute a transfer window from May 1st to June 1st, unrestricted transfer. If you want to transfer somewhere during that time for an athletic purpose, you can transfer during that window of time. Okay. Um, you can argue with me on the, date of that. You can go June 1st to July 1st, so everybody's done with school. I don't care. But ultimately, I think they need to be enrolled in that school before the end of the school year, preferably. But, that's just my caveat. Now, you do that, you don't sit out, no penalty. Outside of that window, this is where this is where the state of Texas, I think, has a really good process here where I'm a firm believer in small government and you fix problems closest to the issues, right? I don't need somebody in Thomaston telling me how to do my job in Rabin County, right? I don't need them telling me how to do my job in Rockmart. But what we can do, and for each situation, right, especially when you have a employee number of like 8 people they have down there, I think that we create basically a district board review, basically each region. So all 8 regions, 9 regions, however many regions you want, you have appointed, 5, 6, 7, however many you want, 3, I don't care. But for every classification, that region specific, region 8, region 7, that is the board review. And so all they're going to do is they're going to oversee the transfers into that region, regardless of the classification. And then basically you have a similar process to what we have now, which the former school that they're transferring from and current school, they've got to fill out the necessary paperwork and then submit that to this board. That region specific board goes through their checklist, make sure the paperwork looks good, make sure everything, was there undue influence? Was there anything suspicious about this? And then they make the eligibility determination based on the guidelines that they've been given by the GHSA, right? It's very simple. They are the ones that institute these things. Now, if they are ruled ineligible, the school, along with the parent, may appeal that to the GHSA, the State Executive Committee, and they can then take a look at how that process was handled in the documentation, and they can either overrule it or uphold it, and teach his own. Now, if that kid gets denied, he can still go back to his previous school without a penalty one time. So he can try to go to this other school, but if he gets denied, he can still return to the other school and not have to sit out. I think that this would allow a very clear cut way of not only the recruitment part or the transferring part of it, right? But also if you are trying to curb transferring for athletic purposes, you give them a specific cutoff date of like this is when you can transfer. You really don't have to give us a quote unquote reason. If you, as long as you make the quote unquote bona fide move on paper, you can go to this school, between May 1st and June 1st. Anything outside of that, though, it goes through the process and it goes through it. And if you are found to be a habitual, line stepper here and having a bunch of kids coming in and they aren't getting approved, well, again, the school starts getting fined for every single one. The school starts having to handle this. The school and the adults are the ones that are penalized. It is not the kid. It's not anything to do with the kid. I think that for the most part, if we kept it as simple as that, you would curb a lot of this issue that we do currently have. Again, make it simple, but fix the problem closest to the situation. The people in Region 5 know more about they hear all the rumors, the whispers, and everything. The people in Region 1, they all hear the same shit on Talk That Talk 229, I promise, okay? Like, they're gonna know what the rumor mill is saying, and they're gonna see what's said, so they can also probably take that information that, again, GHSA has no desire to wade into that pool. But that's why you appoint these people that are community people around these places that again, from single A all the way up to 7A. If you're in the region 8 of that, that's your executive board that you go to for these decisions. It either happens or it doesn't. But once it's ruled on, it's ruled on. And, this is the process. But I just, I like that because it makes it very clear cut of what you can and cannot do in the process that you needed to go through in order to become eligible, right? And so that's kind of my 2 cents on that.
Well, the section that I did like a lot was your investigation into how other people do playoffs. And I got blasted last week for saying, just suggesting, just throwing it out there. Why don't we have regions 1 through 4 do a PSR? Regions 5 through 8 do a PSR, play the first 2 rounds amongst the however they fall, and then go here we go. Rounds 3 and 4 and 5 will travel because that's more realistic than Long County having to travel 700-mile round trip. And of course, somebody, they blast that about, well, geography shouldn't be. What if this area is better at blah, 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 whatever. Well, we're not thinking about the child, the student athlete on a Tuesday having to go, they're going to miss 2 or 3 days of school because it's going to take them 2 days to get to wherever they are. I don't know if people are aware of this, but the state of Georgia is rather large. And as one who has traveled before for a second round playoff game from Early County to Rabun County, find those 2 places on the map. And I'll tell you that story at another time, how that worked out. But there's got to be a better way. And I thought you came up with a very well argued and very good take on how the playoffs could be reimagined.
Well, and again, I think in order if you were to look at it for 2020, so 26 to 28, this time around here, and you just wanted to test it with class 6 and 7A, I think it would be a worthwhile process because, so 32 teams, make the playoffs, right? And so right now in 7A, we've got 52 teams, and in 6A, we've got 64 teams. What I would like to see is us play again, you play the regions how they are. You have your region schedule, how everything is. But based off kind of your typical model of how'd you finish? Did you finish in the top 4 of your region? Okay, great. You're automatically, quote unquote, eligible for the playoffs at that point, to a certain degree. But to me, I like eliminating first and second round blowouts because nobody like again, imagine being a 32 seed and having to go and play Carrollton last year, or go play Buford, or go play, Creekside, or go play Langston Hughes, or any of that. Do you think under any circumstance, those kids are like, "Man, I can't wait to get back to the playoffs again"? No, because 'cause they're about to go and get bent over a damn barrel and shown the 50 states 100 times over. It's awful. It's miserable. Nobody wants to go do that shit. So to me, you take the top 16 and you have basically Division One playoff bracket. So that's a 16-team bracket. Those are your region champions and probably your runner-ups. And this is where your power ranking or that kind of process would take place with filling in any gaps there. But ultimately, it's pretty much a region champion. It's your top 2 finishers in all 8 regions. That 8 times 2, that gives you 16, right? And then take the next 16. So maybe that's your 3, 4 in every region, and that's your next 16, right? And then you reseed them. That 17th seed is now a 1 seed in the Division 2 bracket, and they have their own bracket, and they are playing for a state champion in the Division 2 level of 7A and the Division 2 level of 6A. So you have 2 state champions in 6 and 7A. Now, to me, again, the number one thing you're going to hear is, "Oh, we're just giving out trophies to everybody." No, I mean, shit. Think about it like that. Fine, I'll call you small-minded and unwilling to see the bigger picture here. The reality.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Quality of it is you're about to crank up the intensity and competitiveness of these playoff games because you know what just came a lot harder? The fact that, you know, Milton has to play a round one game against Creekside or Langston Hughes because guess what? Creekside and Langston Hughes are in the same damn region this year. So whoever finishes 1 versus 2, imagine them having to go on the road as a 2 seed, you know, from their region, right? So they're gonna be a 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 seed, and they're gonna have to go and play a 1 through 8 seed that won the region. Imagine those games. Imagine every single game will feel like a semifinal game. And to me, talk about entertaining. And then you have the Division II level where now you still have really good football teams, but they are not the upper echelon football team. And they aren't going to try to go down a classification to try to be the big dog in that one because they can still go win a state championship. They just need to make sure they're in the top 32 and they have an opportunity at the dance, right? You go from being a 32 seed to a 16 seed, playing the 1 seed, you know, that's a 3 playing a 4 in a region. That's a whole hell of a lot easier than if you were playing, you know, I'm the 4 seed and we went 3 and 7. Whereas if imagine if the 5 seed in region 1 in, you know, 6A went 6 and 4, but they're out of the, you know, they're technically out of the playoffs. Well, by this, you'd be able to take in that kind of strength of schedule and everything else that goes on with it. They're going to get in over a damn 3 and 7, you know, 4 seed that's in a shitty ass region. That's the difference. You're still getting the best teams, but you're also making it to where there is this competitive balance that's taking place. And now the product you're putting out there on Fridays, especially when you're talking about the playoffs, I can't really think of a better way to do it. I think it would be wildly entertaining. And you want to talk about an increase in revenue? Imagine the TV dollars, the boom in booster clubs based on you actually now have a legitimate chance to go and play for a state championship in Texas, that Division II uh, you know, level for each classification. They play that in the Star. They don't get to play in the big, you you know, Texas Stadium out there in Jerry World. They most of those play in the Star, which is still great. I mean, hell, imagine if you could also use, you know, Center Park Stadium, you know, Georgia State's Soul Turner Field, or hell, maybe use Mercer Stadium, maybe use Georgia Southern's or Georgia's or Tech's, whatever. But don't make it an excuse because of scheduling or whatever. I love the idea just because it's going to guarantee us competitive football games in every round. And we're not about to get a damn waste of time because when you make the playoffs, I like to think every team you play is deserving of being in there and on that field at the same time. The first 2 rounds every year are a snooze in a lot of these because there are no upsets. There aren't. The Cinderella aspect of it is foolish. It's nonsense. Let's create a little bit more competitive balance, if you ask me.
Absolutely, and allowing things to work out the way that it makes more sense. Like you always say, common sense customer service. And North Carolina had this set up years ago where they had big A, big 2A, little 2A, all the way up to their largest classification. And I listened to a guy speak at a clinic once that their school had won the lower single A state championship because once they got to the playoffs, they split everybody. And they had won several of the small. He's like, my hometown that I'm from, they don't care. We're bringing home a trophy. That's all they care about. We're winning. the same schools our size, we're winning. And that was they did it by size of schools. So that was very interesting. And the last thing that you talked about to reform the GHSA, if you were in charge of it, was the public private split, which from what I gathered looking at it, said don't worry about it, refer back to the enrollment and classification. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so basically this would eliminate the need to have a upper, a lower division private and a higher division private. This would allow for you to take in the enrollment multiplier of out of district kids. It would need to have a defined district with an actual, kind of boundaries and barriers. But from my standpoint, I think I think this would include them again. And this would allow for, all right, let's just throw, a dart at it here. Hebrew and Christian, you know, their district is kind of around Aquila, and they have a lot of out of district kids. Um, it's why they win state championships. But the reality is, imagine you multiply their enrollment with their athletic participation. Are they winning a state championship in 6 or 7A this upcoming year? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. God love them, but they're not, okay? The reality is you would end up that with that competitive balance, and they're able to play against teams with similar talent as well as based off of, really every aspect of their, program, and it makes them have to be a little bit more selective at times, like, "Golly, I don't want us to play in 7A, so we can't take 35 kids to that play sports," right? We've gotta find a way to make our numbers make a little bit better sense to where you know, if they do drop to AAA or 4A or 5A, maybe that means they're a little bit more competitive at those levels, but they're also not willy nilly taking every damn kid that wants to come there. So to me, I think that would solve that public private issue that we always run into. You're not necessarily telling them they can't invited to the party, but if they are going to be invited to the party, we got to make sure we get an accurate guest count. So that to me is kind of where my line in the sand goes with them. I think if you institute those things, where even if you looked at the transfer, you looked at how we do the classes, and then you incorporate the the Division 1, Division 2 within the higher classifications. Now, again, if they boat race their entire region in that, now again, they're going to have to play a 1 or 2 seed in Region 1, Region 2, region whatever, and to me, that's gonna make it to where if a private school finds a way to navigate that, God love them, but good luck. So, I just think that in large part, this would fix a lot of the frustration that comes with the private schools at times.
And that is exactly how Coach Ed Gaffca would fix the GHSA if given the opportunity. We're gonna be done for today. We're gonna touch on the big school versus small school next week, and what other articles Coach comes up with this week. Coach, what you got going on this week as far as articles go, or anything in general?
Honestly, I'm kinda working on a couple different things. These articles don't take as much time as people would probably think, but the reality is, I'm always looking for suggestions, and I'm always, looking for, anybody that wants to send me anything, feel free to shoot me a DM anytime with anything you think that might be worth, worth expanding on, worth kind of, figuring out, some of the things that you think would be worth, coach's time. I think that anything that we can do to get to fall, get to spring ball, I'm happy to put anything out there that anybody throws at me. I mean, I've been lucky enough to speak with several people that are, wanting me to look at different, just different little odds and ends that have taken place, and different one-off situations. But if you do get bored, if you do get bored, I encourage you to just go and look at Oklahoma and how they institute their transfer policy and how just everything about Oklahoma High School Athletic Association and kind of the shit show that is the Sooner State right now. I can't imagine a bigger hell to be in. So I know Florida sucks because they don't pay you, but at least in Florida, at least in Florida, it's not the wild, wild west of what they're dealing with out there. And, we're going to sit here and wax poetic about Bixby High School and all this other stuff. And again, it's one of those things. Obviously, you're good when you have better players. Obviously, you're good when you have better players. And how do you get better players? Well, they have NIL deals out there that are pretty nice. And I did tweet something out about a guy who decided he was going to write an article about a 13-year-old committing to play at Bixby High School. I said it on X, and I'll say it again. If you ever catch me doing that, if you ever catch me doing that, assume I have gone absolute batshit crazy or somebody paid me a lot of money, like a lot of money. I can be bought, I'm just not cheap. And the reality is, if we're gonna go down this road of announcing where 13-year-old's about to take his talents to. I mean, shit, he's telling you where he's taking Algebra 1 next semester. He's telling you where he's going to take English 1. So this is the stupidest shit in the world. He's 13 years old, but this guy's gonna sit here and, you know, think that it's the end all be all, and this kid hadn't even hit puberty yet, or maybe he has, and that's as big as he's gonna get, guys. But all four of you putting an ungodly amount of pressure on him. Congratulations. That's a piece of shit human being right there. So I'm not going to get my blood pressure's already up. I don't need to, get us an X rating on here. So, yeah, hopefully you've got a good week and hopefully you're able to hit the golf ball a little bit this week. But we'll be we'll be looking forward to seeing people's DMs and suggestions. I always got time for it.
Yes, this will come out, of course, Tuesday, and on Thursday, Dr. Byron Slack, the head football coach at Brunswick, his episode will be aired. Fantastic, one of the best dudes in the business. He has an awesome story, just how he grew up, where he grew up, and all of that. Played at West Georgia, so that's cool. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Let everybody know what's going on. Like to encourage everybody to check out Matchup USA. It's starting to grow in leaps and bounds. People are starting to realize that it isn't just a scheduling for football, but for all of sports. Check those guys out. And I'd also like to remind guys that on March 14th, we'll be having the Sun Coaches Retreat at South Forsyth High School. Registration starts at 8 a.m. in the morning, $50 for your entire staff. We're going to have 8 different staffs presenting in 3 different rooms. It's just a one-day deal. It's going to be a lot of fun, old school. No college coaches, no vendors, none of that, just guys talking ball. And as always, I'd like to thank you for joining us and to remind you to relax. It's just satire.
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Another checkered flag for the books. Time to celebrate with Chumba. Jump in at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See T&Cs. 21 plus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
If you work in university maintenance, Granger considers you an MVP because your playbook ensures your arena is always ready for tip-off. And Granger is your trusted partner, offering the products you need all in one place, from HVAC and plumbing supplies to lighting and more. And all delivered with plenty of time left on the clock, so your team always gets the win. Call 1-800-GRANGER, visit Granger.com, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.